The last part of this setup is to add the clouds into their own render layer. So you notice that I've got the snow pass. I just press play here. And actually let me just unhide that point cloud. There we go. So we've got the snow pass now, and now that we've got the cloud to support it, I need to isolate it on its own pass as well too. So we've got our snow pass, we've got the ground and tree pass, and on the ground and tree pass we need to actually hide the cloud point cloud, or this one right here. And same thing for the sky dome pass. For the sky dome pass we have nothing because we've deleted it. And in the default pass we just want the cloud by itself. So let's just jump into the passes mode by pressing P. And it's this default pass that we have the Mental Images Physical Sky shader on. So I guess what I'll do here is rename this one. Just call this the BG Sky. And on this pass here, I want to isolate the clouds as well. So I'm going to go in and access all the items from the background objects partition. I'll take the cloud emitter and point cloud objects and partition them off. Call it the cloud partition. And I'll hide the contents of the background objects partition. So I have something like this. If I draw a render region, again, just waiting for the final gathering pass to finish. And then we get our clouds. We want to make sure that we can generate an alpha channel for the clouds if we need to color correct them separately. So if we have a look at the alpha, you can see that we don't have a pure alpha here. We have the black of the background, or the color of the background showing up as a medium gray. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem, but again, I can just blend the background layer with a mask of the clouds to isolate it in post. So that should not be a problem there at all. So let's go to some of these other passes. Let me just switch to the ground tree pass. It's got the clouds present, which I don't need. It also has this light present, which I don't need either. This is the new light I added to light the underside of the volume cloud. So on the ground tree pass, I've got a lights partition that contains all my lights. I'm just going to take this point light here, which is my cloud, like an underfill. I'll partition it off. I'll call this like a hidden lights partition and hide the lights. I also need to take the hidden partition of the ground tree pass, and if I look in the background objects folder, there is my cloud emitter and point cloud, and I'll just drag and drop them into my hidden partition. So now I have no problems here. So with that finished, I can go back in now and re-render with the clouds isolated. The snowfall also needs to be fixed as well too. If you look at the ground in the bottom here, remember that this is just a mask. The ground shows up, but I actually have its alpha turned off, so that's fine there. And I need to make sure I hide the cloud in this shot as well. So I'll take the cloud. In the snow pass, there's a hidden partition here as well. So in the background objects partition, I should see the cloud and its emitter, and I'll just drag them into my hidden partition. So that being the case now, I can render off a single frame of each pass and then look to post to recombine them. I could even try and isolate the MIA sky on its own render pass as well too by hiding the clouds. So if I was to take, say, the BG sky pass, I could Control D to duplicate the pass. So if I look inside of it, this pass also has the physical sky shader, and the cloud partition that actually, if I switch to this pass, let me switch to it, BG Sky Pass 1. So the cloud partition is no longer hidden anymore. I can actually just hide that partition, so now I'm just dealing with a pure sky dome. Alright, so with that being the case, I also want to do one more test here. I want to actually look at the sky pass. If I switch to this, and if we compare the sky pass with and without the MIA physical sky shader, we want to see if this affects the clouds in any way. And if it doesn't, this will prevent us from having to render and create masks for the clouds. So I'm just about to do an image compare. Just wait for that to finish rendering. There we go. So if I middle click on that and I click on the MIA physical sky shader, I can simply just turn it off. Let's see if we get a difference in the shading, and if we do, then we're going to resort to using post to remove the effect of the physical sky shader. So luckily, it actually doesn't look like we have any issues with it at all. So I could actually toggle the physical sky shader in one pass and leave it visible in the other. So this is a great way of being able to go in and turn it off and then recombine it back in post a little bit later. So now I'm actually ready for rendering. The BG Sky Pass has the physical sky shader turned off, so this one will actually be called the Cloud Pass, and the BG Sky Pass 1 I duplicated will actually become the Sky Pass. Okay, if I close them up, I have all my render layers now. Render passes, Sky Pass, Cloud Pass, Ground Tree, Sky Dome, which shouldn't be anything. Let me double check to see that this isn't a redundant pass. So in the Sky Dome pass, I still have this cloud, and it's actually not rendering anything. It was when I actually had the Sky Dome. It's actually, if I switch to it there, I've actually probably hidden the Sky Dome manually. Yeah, it's this object here. So I don't really need this pass anymore. I'll actually just delete that. So I'm optimizing my passes, and I'll render off now. I'm going to do a 300 frame render this time, and I'm going to actually increase the amount of snow just a little bit. So if I jump back into my snow point cloud, my ice tree, I'm now working with a rate of 372 particles per second. I'm going to raise that a little bit more, let's say to 500 frames. I'll just let it play through for a little bit so the new rate can accumulate. There we go. And I'll set that as an initial state. So we'll set the initial state here. And finally, we'll set up the render pass options. So for the snow pass, if I switch to the renderer options, or to the render manager. So for the snow pass itself, we're using a frame range of 1 to 300. For the cloud pass, all we really need is a single frame. We're actually not animating the cloud moving at all. It's a pretty socked-in system, so the clouds will move very little in the 300 frames we would see them. And everything else is just a single frame render, sky pass as well. Okay, I'm going to do one more thing with the cloud. I'm actually going to find the cloud emitter, and if I just go back to the cloud pass, I noticed that the cloud isn't quite large enough to encompass the scene. So I'm either going to move the, if I go back to frame 2 here, I'm either going to move the cloud or scale it. In this case, I'm just going to move it a little bit, just so I have coverage of the entire roof of the scene. I'll double check that. See how the render looks, and everything's looking pretty good here. Excellent. So let's render. I'm going to turn off the Camtasia recording now, let all these files render out, and we'll come back and composite this.